Hello, everybody. Welcome to 3 Point Perspective, the podcast about illustration, how to do it, how to make a living at it, and how to make an impact in the world with your art. I'm Jake Parker.
I'm Lee White.
And I'm Anthony Wheeler. Jake, what's our topic today?
Well, I want to ask you guys, have you ever seen someone with incredible art skills, but they still struggle to pay rent? And conversely, do you ever see people who are not stellar talents, not amazing talents, but they have art skills. They're somewhat average, but they're killing it with their art business. It happens all the time, right?
Yep. Yeah, there's a big disparity there, isn't there?
Right. So that's what I want to talk about today. It's like why is one artist succeeding when another artist isn't? And I want to start with story time. So you guys could just sit back and listen to the story. It's kind of rhetorical, but and you listeners too, let me ask you this, or let me outline this. So meet, and these are just names I made up, meet Riley. Riley's art is incredible, the kind of work that stops you mid-scroll. They're imaginative, they're expressive, their art is technically jaw-dropping, and they've got a decent Instagram following, and a few of their pieces or their reels actually go viral, right? So an art director stumbles across Riley's work while scouting for talent for an illustration project, like a picture book or something, but they can't find a website. Riley doesn't have a website. There's no email in the bio of their Instagram account, and their handle just has their name and a few emojis and I like making art, right? So the art director sends Riley a DM asking about what's your availability, what are your rates? And a week later, Riley replies with a, hey, yeah, I'm interested. And the rate that they suggest is way under budget. Too low, in fact, for the art director to ignore. So the art director's like, I'll just take a chance. Let's hire Riley. So at first things seem promising, right? The sample sketches are brilliant. They're full of life. They're full of charm. But then communications start to lag. Weeks go by without an update. And then when the art director finally checks in, Riley explains, they've been sick. They've been dealing with personal stuff, but assures them that everything is fine. But then the deadline comes and it goes. A day later, Riley sends half the illustrations, which again are phenomenal, but they're incomplete. And they ask, can I have an extension on this deadline? So the art director is torn. The work is beautiful, but the process is stressful. The editor's breathing down their neck, and the deadlines, because the deadlines have been missed. And now at this point, trust is sort of eroded with Riley. Eventually, Riley finishes the project, but this art director doesn't hire Riley again. So that's story number one. Okay, story number two, meet Taylor, okay? Taylor's art style is not the flashiest. It's solid, it's clean. Maybe it's not the portfolio of the year, but it does communicate clearly and consistently. They've done a few indie projects, nothing big yet, but they treat every opportunity like it matters. Okay, so when an art director is looking for someone to illustrate a middle grade chapter book or a picture book, this art director stumbles on Taylor's portfolio, and they see a simple but well-organized website. They see a very clear contact page. They see maybe downloadable PDF samples so they can look at stuff higher resolution. They see an About Me page with client testimonials and deliverables that they promise. So the art director emails Taylor and they get a reply that same day. Taylor thanks him for the opportunity, provides a friendly intro and a short list of relevant examples that kind of show what the art director might be looking for. Taylor also gives a timeline estimate and a straightforward rate with possibly a sheet with terms or just a section of the email that says, here's the terms that I'd like to go for. And then Riley asks, or Taylor asks smart questions. So would you like character sheets ahead of the final pages? Would you like to see a couple of different variations on the style before we commit to something final? Now, once hired, Taylor hits every milestone on time. Every file is properly named. Feedback is received graciously and turned around quickly. When the editor asks for small revisions outside of the original scope, Taylor comes back with, yes, I'm happy to help, just letting you know this would fall under a revision outside our original agreement. So I can include a small additional fee, or we can just adjust another element to balance this thing out. It's totally up to you. So they're being very upfront with not being pushed around, but saying, here's a way for us to move forward. The art director is floored. The art isn't jaw-dropping, but the experience is. The book goes smoothly, the publisher is happy, and Taylor's name is now on a short list for 3 more projects that the publisher has. So they may not be the coolest artists on Instagram, but they're always booked with work, okay? So what's the difference between these two artists?
The difference is that Taylor's super annoying. I'm kidding. I kind of feel like I've been both Taylor and Riley out of this situation.
For real.
Oh my gosh. I just see Lee nodding his head right now.
I mean, I'm just thinking, but what you have is basically the scenario, if you break it down, is you got a talented artist who isn't good at business, and you have a marginally a competent illustrator, not anything amazing, but is good at business.
Mm-hmm. So what makes which artist would you rather be? Let me ask you that.
I would rather be the super talented one.
Okay.
Because you can acquire the business skills easier than you can acquire the art skills.
Nice.
At that point.
Okay. Interesting.
Oh boy.
What would you feel about you, Anthony?
Well, before we started recording the podcast, we were talking about being old and that sometimes it's difficult to change our behaviors because we are just kind of ingrained the way that we are. We have our routines and we're a little less flexible than we used to be, both physically and then, sort of literally with the business stuff. Man, that's tricky. I feel like I'm probably more mediocre in my art. But at times I'm really good at the business stuff, and at times I'm really just too overloaded and not good with the business stuff. I mean, of course, I think I'd rather just be like the best artist and jaw-dropping work and all of that sort of stuff. But I'd also be so stressed out to be behind and on beyond deadline every single time, and just knowing that you're burning bridges left and right. I mean, you've put an impossible scenario in front of both of us right now.
Mm-hmm. I mean, ideally, it's like, yeah, I want to be the most amazing artist and the most amazing business person, right? Which
normally those don't go together.
No.
Which actually, I think you can. That's achievable, and you see people out there who are like that. Like, I mean, and they're successful for a reason. Like, you look at like Loish, right? And here's a woman who essentially created an art style that people now mimic. Like her art style is so influential that there's just girls who grow up wanting to draw like Loish, and now they're doing it professionally, right? But then she also has had a career as a concept artist, right? She also has a very successful Patreon. And I don't know if you guys have supported her on Patreon for any period of time, but it is the most professionally run Patreon ever. Like,
and we looked at it at one point. I don't know where it's at right now, but
are you still on her Patreon, Jake?
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm on there every week.
Over 10,000 people were subscribed to her Patreon.
And she has definitely earned that because every month, like clockwork, on the first day of the month, or I think it's the last day of the month, she's like, here's your rewards. Here's what we went over this month. Here's a PDF. Here's a folder. Here's all this. Next month, this is what we're going to do. Bang, 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 bang. And then she delivers on that. She knows what's dropping every week. She knows what's dropping every month. She's also planned seasonally ahead. So she's ready to rock and roll when fall comes with all the fall stuff. And she's ready to rock and roll with winter. And she's just, I mean, she's so dialed in. So I look at her as like phenomenal artist, phenomenal business person. And I'm like, this is something I think you just have to work on. And if you don't know how to do it, you have to find the training, do the learning somehow to get it going.
Mm-hmm. The problem is, in my opinion, nowadays, is the art is sort of self-explanatory. Most people know where they're at in their evolution as an artist and probably know how to get better, even though they're not there yet. They know how to train. The business stuff is so vague. And there's 100 people trying to tell you I scroll through Instagram every day. Oh, here's what you're going to want to post. Let me show you the secret to all this. And it is so incredibly confusing, and expensive if you make the wrong choice. I think it's enough to be I'm just trying to think of somebody who's like, okay, I got good skills. I'm going to go ahead and start marketing myself. It's so confusing and so much information out there and so many ways to do it. It can almost be paralyzing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you wade through that becomes the real question. It's not like, oh, how do I be good at business? You want to be a responsible person. If you can't turn in stuff online on time in terms of a deadline, that is a different story. But understanding the route to being a good business person is murky at best.
Yeah, well, and I think that's what we'd like to demystify in this episode, because I think there's 6 things you can work on. And we're going to go over each one of those things. And I want to point out, too, what Lee pointed out or brought up was online businesses, or what works tactically, is always changing. But I think what works strategically has never changed, right? So what's the difference between strategy and tactics? So strategy is very fundamental, core ideas that essentially would work now as well as 2,000 years ago in a marketplace in Egypt, right? Essentially, what's your strategy is create a great product, have very solid marketing strategy or marketing plan, and then solve the churn problem, make sure you have repeat customers, and then figure out how do you convert people. How does the marketing work to convert people to buyers, right? And then make sure they're satisfied and they come back. That is strategy. Tactics change. So what works at a marketplace 2,000 years ago in Egypt or 1800s publishing is not going to work today as a tactic, because you have social media now and you have weird algorithms that change month to month. And so essentially, if your strategy is still good and in place, you can kind of alter your tactics as needed as the market shifts a little bit and still be in a good position. And I've seen, going back to Loish, I've seen her do this where when Reels became a thing, she embraced it and she started posting Reels consistently. I don't think she loves making Reels, but she got it down into a system where it's not a heavy lift for her. And she's got it dialed into where if I'm working, I'm recording. And once I have stuff recorded, I have a pipeline to make these into Reels. And now I can bust out, 20 Reels for each illustration that I make, stuff like that. So I want to get down to these 6 things that you actually have control over, and that you can.
Can I be cynical? I'm kind of feeling spicy today.
Yeah, I love it. I love spicy, Lee.
I'm going to be cynical, and I don't know whether I can say this out loud. So you guys tell me if
we'll edit it out if it's too hot to handle.
Here's the thing, and I'm feeling a little spicy, feeling a little frustrated sometimes when I scroll through my Instagram feed. Loish paints pretty girls.
Mm-hmm.
If you paint pretty girls, that's step 1 of being somebody who gets something going on Instagram. It's the Mel Milton does it. We noticed it when we went to CTN. It's like, oh, here's the pretty version of Little Mermaid. Here's
I've ever
pretty.
Heard.
Huh?
That's the lamest excuse I've ever heard.
It's true. I'm scrolling through her feed. It's not just an average girl. It's not just a normal character. These people would be models if they were in real life. I do think that there's an ingredient there that, it's age old what sells. I feel uncomfortable painting pretty girls. And so I think it's marketable in a way that other subject matter is tough to market.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Go to shencomics.com. Or not, Shen Comics at Instagram. Or
okay. How do you spell it? How does
Shen Comics on Instagram?
SHEN?
SHENCOMIX.
X. All right.
I'm going to be the antithesis of what Lee is talking about here in a little bit.
Okay. So did you pull up Shen Comics?
Okay. Yeah.
How many followers on there?
He's got 1.8. I'm assuming it's he. I don't know why I even did that. It's 1.8 million.
How many sexy babes do you see?
Hold on, I gotta scroll down. I gotta find the metric here, because I'm not saying that the sexy girls are the only way. But if you want to get a quick following, start drawing and painting pretty girls. I mean, they've done it since the third. I mean, Norman Rockwell even and it's such a sexist thing to say. That's why I feel funny saying it. But like, if he was uncomfortable about a painting, he would send the prettiest girl he could find to deliver the painting. I mean, there's a certain just sort of built in. That's why pretty women are in advertising. I mean, I'm not saying anything that no one's familiar with. Surely everybody.
No, the truth is, everybody likes a pretty girl, regardless of your orientation, regardless.
It's just weird how I mean, I just see it through my feed a bunch, and Lois is one of those. I'm not saying she is so talented. When she does anything else that's not that, it's equally as good. I mean, she's amazing. I'm not saying she's resting on that.
I want to get to Anthony's antithesis there, but I just want to point out, I think, and maybe this goes along with what you're going to say, I think you have to be really good at the subject matter that you're doing, and that's going to be the deciding factor. Maybe Pretty Girls gives you an upper hand, like maybe a par 2 or something.
It frees you up from doing a concept. I guess that's sort of what it does. If you paint a pretty girl doing anything, just sitting there, it's worthy. Now, this person that you said, it's a great thing to bring up, and I'm just talking out loud. I haven't even seen this before, but like, this person has to bring some concept to each one of these things. I haven't read through so it's very, for those of you guys who are just listening and aren't seeing it, it's very comic looking, like comic strip looking, even very heavy outlines, but they're
all four or five panel comics.
4 or 5 panel comics. So he's got to bring it. Like, there has to be some kind of concept. And so I remember like, even like The Far Side or any of those kind of things. Like, you have to be that kind of person who can think conceptually, creative conceptually, and then also be able to execute it in some way. Now, this one, whatever the concept is, must be so good that the art doesn't have to match, because this art is not very good.
I think that's pretty subjective, though.
It's not good. I'm the one who says
definitely gets the job done, but I think it's beautiful in its own way.
It is. I mean, it's got its own flair, but I'm saying like, this would not, like, if somebody says, I want to paint like Lois, you're looking at 10 years of training to get it. She is exceptional technically. This is not out of the realm of most people.
Okay, what were you going to say, Anthony?
Well, I think my brain is in a jumble right now. I mean, I've been scrolling on Lois's Instagram for the last handful of minutes, and I've got a whole bunch of her art books behind me, and I think it's a little reductive, but I understand where he's coming from in terms of I think she does so much more subject matter, and I think she's that great alchemy between what I think are relatively good concepts, but also great shapes, and then phenomenal execution.
Yeah.
And I think she is the cream of the crop when it comes to that sort of stuff. I also think that there's a vast amount of success that is coming from what Jake talked about. Is she delivers every day. She's performing on Instagram. She's got her Patreon stuff. It's just like we talked about earlier. It's like clockwork. And I think Shen is probably seeing a lot of success doing that too, is just showing up every day and engaging with that audience, for whatever means necessary. Before we started the podcast, we were talking about like, how many times have I posted on Instagram since August versus how many times has Lee posted on Instagram? And our goals have changed a little bit in this handful of years. And then sometimes we come back to social media because maybe our goals aren't getting achieved as well. But like, I've posted very little on social media because I've been busy building empires and other things. And so like sometimes that stuff all kind of culminates, and that's where that viewership or that popularity or what can start really coming through. One thing though, I need to deviate in my brain though. I had a company reach out to me a few weeks ago about building sort of a high level training workshop teaching course with pre-recorded content along with live content. And one of the exercises that we did is that we sat down and we looked at not all, but like a sample size of 6 other creatives that are in the similar kind of market as what I'm in, so illustration, and vastly different styles, executions, and subject matter. So, for instance, there was somebody who really focuses on oil painting with flowers. There's a comic artist who just focuses on like pure Marvel, DC kind of comic book stuff. There was a character designer who really emphasizes shape over line. And then there's a handful more. So the point is that there's some very disparate kind of styles in there. Shockingly, the revenue that they were making from these training courses was all about in that same category. I'm not going to divulge it, but they were performing all at these really high levels. And their styles were all radically different from each other. And their Instagram followings and their social media followings were all very different too. And that somebody with 5,000 followers was making as much money as somebody with 250,000 followers on Instagram. And you know, there's a lot more of that alchemy there. I think is what it comes down to.
Yeah, yeah. So, do you want to go over those 6 things that we have control over? Get into the weeds there a little bit.
Yeah, let's start with so I'll read the list and then let's talk about each of them individually. So if you go through 1 through 6, basically you have packaging your work. Number 2 is your inbound and outbound marketing. Number 3 is pricing your work. 4 is contracts and negotiation. 5 is client communication. And 6 is project management and scope control. So these are the things that in theory should all be well within our control, right?
Right.
So let's talk about number 1, which is packaging your work.
That's right.
Man, I have some thoughts here, but I've been talking this last couple of minutes. Jake, what do you think defines success in that category? And
I think you're looking at a successful person on who's figured out packaging, has found a lane and is staying in it, right? And until they've mastered that lane, they really haven't gone outside of that. So you think about let's say a John Klassen or a Loish, or I'm just going to name any successful.
Or I'm going to even say Lee in this category. I'm going to share Lee's Instagram here.
Lee White.
I've heard of him.
Even Will Terry.
I love packaging. I got to say.
And that is, they all, like, you could in one word say what they do, right? Or in a handful of words easily say what they do. Lee White, cats and balconies. Loish, beautiful women, right? John
Cats and
Klassen,
balconies doesn't do as well as the beautiful women. I will say that.
right. What would you say John Klassen's got going on?
Yeah, he does eyeballs.
Bears and hats.
Bears and hats, right? Or very geometrically simple, illustrated animals. And Will Terry, very high, beautifully rendered, cute stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, same with you, Anthony. You've picked a lane and you've stayed in it. You've got like this ink lined cartooniness that's going on there.
Yeah.
And so if you're one of the things you have control over is, I know listening to this right now, you might be thinking, well, I love drawing, I love drawing cars, but I also love drawing plants, but I also love drawing wildlife, but I also love drawing portraits, you have to pick one and lean into that for a few years as that's your thing. Go ahead and do the other stuff from time to time, in your sketchbook and for fun, but your online presence needs to be about that one, either a very strong particular style or a very strong, unmistakable genre or focus of subject matter. And And then that's part of it, is picking the lane. And then the second part, packaging it, is how do you display it in a way that it's easy for people to consume and see and appreciate? And so that might be social media, that might be having a website, that might be having a gallery space that's highly trafficked, and that's, you know, where your artwork is mainly seen by people. And so, I mean, you think about like Kellogg's, just to compare. You know, you look at the cereal aisle, and it's every different kind of cereal, right? But you go to Kellogg's, and what do? They do essentially primarily not super sweet, sugary cereals, but like somewhere in the middle. Like they're going to do the Rice Krispies, and they're also going to do Special K, and it's mostly like rice based, semi. I don't want to say healthy, but sensible cereals, right?
Yep.
And so that's the lane that they picked on. They're not going to be the ones that are doing like, you know, oh my gosh, we've got oops, all sugar bombs, right? It's going to be a variation off the Rice Krispie brand, right? And so they've picked their lane, they picked their packaging, and you know exactly what you're going to get from Kellogg's, right? And so I think it's the same thing with you as an artist. Is you, if it works for these big companies, it's going to work for you as well in this day and age where everybody is a brand.
Yeah, I want to compare two things really quickly. So before we got on the podcast today, I think Lee had said in this last month he's had over 1 million impressions on his Instagram, and I think some of that is that alchemy that we talk about of like posting your work as regular as you can, and then but the packaging of this. I don't want to compliment him too much, but like this is really superb. Like when you see a piece in your feed, if you're familiar with Lee's work, like you really get it. And then when you go to his overall Instagram, like the whole aura of this thing really shines through. I want to compare that against some of the stuff that I've done here recently, because it's way more scattershot and kind of BS-y. And I don't think my packaging in this way has been very good for a long time. So for the folks in their car, I've got my YouTube up. We were just Instagram up. We were just looking at Lee's. The top line of my Instagram right now are a couple of posts from my chaotic draw along prompt cards. The next line down are some pen and ink, watercolor illustration, character illustration, but they don't really match all that well. I've got, as I scroll down, I've got He-Man, I've got a kid who's lost in the woods, and I've got a zombie garden gnome. And as you see these in the feed, like if you're familiar with my stuff in terms of like watercolor and ink, and then like degenerate, sometimes cute characters, then that's kind of the vibe. But like from an overall presentation and packaging, like my social media right now, and actually for a long time, has been not great. It's not been great.
Is that is it not great because you're just like, okay, I made a post, or I'm going to post something today, and it's not connected to what you posted yesterday? Or why do you think it feels disjointed? Because it is your work. It doesn't look that disjointed to me. I'd be curious to what Jake thinks, but I don't see the difference between your feed and my feed in terms of branding.
Man, I see a radical difference. That's funny how we judge our work very differently. I've taken my emphasis off of this, and I did that 2 years ago very consciously because it was consuming a lot of my time. The return was good, but not spectacular. I've had a couple 100,000 followers on Instagram for years, and I don't see that needle changing or moving. And so I didn't abandon it, but I also didn't make it a big part of what I wanted to do. And I sort of shifted my presence on it to say, I'm going to post every so often so people don't forget about me. And then I'm going to worry about number 2 on our list, which we can get to, which is more inbound and outbound marketing. I'm going to worry more about that stuff as opposed to just how this stuff is getting packaging. But I will say, since I've taken my foot off the pedal on this, I am not getting the freelance work that I was getting previously. I'm not getting the brand work, like the brand deals that I used to get. And I can tell like a real difference in that sort of thing. Like I think if I scroll back just on Instagram Reels, and let's scroll down to a couple of events that I used to do. I used to do this event where I would draw a different thing based on the audience suggestion for an entire month, and I called it 32 Days of Super Awesome. I know that there's not 32 days in a month, but you're just going to get over it. And so I would let the audience make my suggestion, and I would choose one and I would draw it. Not surprisingly, during this time, all of these videos, all of the things, don't worry about the thumbnails, but the packaging of the material was similar. It was repetitive, but it was different every day. And I sold tons of stuff. And I had companies reach out to me, hey, we'd like to sponsor this. We'd like to send you some free merchandise. There's a big difference. And like you can just feel it. And then once that energy goes and that packaging starts to fall apart, you can feel it. I'm going to take my stuff off the screen now.
How do I get those deals? I do not get the people reaching out and saying, hey, I want to sponsor you to do this thing.
I think some of it's just putting yourself out there and putting yourself out there more and more and more. I think video is probably a big key for that sort of thing.
Lee,
go ahead.
You haven't had it recently, but you get it all the time. I mean, for Pete's sake, you have a half pipe in your basement. How come?
Well, mine are all weird side deals. It's never like just like somebody wanting to use an image and put it on the cover of their whatever product they have.
I mean, it is weird that a zoo sent you a zebra that one time because you were like just making all sorts of zebra content.
I do have a frame company that has given me some free frames in exchange for
getting art supplies all the time.
That's me reaching out to them. I want to just sit back and have somebody say, "Hey, can I send you some stuff?" But that's not happening.
So let's just tell our podcast listeners out there, look what's working and look what isn't working, and see what you want to do. Right. I think that goes next to our inbound and outbound marketing, which essentially is, what are you doing to attract opportunities? How are you reaching out? And I don't mean, there's broad reaching out and then there's specific reaching out. So broad reaching out is, do you have an email list? Are you building an email list? Do you have a newsletter? Are you active on a social media platform? You don't have to be on all of them, for Pete's sake. I think that's going to drive you crazy. But pick one and put your stuff out there. If not, there's two approaches to social media now. I think one is you just have it sort of be a portfolio where you're not active on it, and you could just clearly say, hey, this is my artwork. I'm so-and-so, this is my artwork. For any inquiries, reach me here. Or you could be very social and active on there and play that game as well. But the thing is everybody, when they find out you're an artist, don't go to your website. They go to your Instagram account first, because it's the easiest way to do one swipe with your thumb and understand who you are as an artist, right? Yeah. So decide what you want to do with social media, but then I think you should have a very concerted effort to be building an email list of either, if you want to sell to fans, an email list that attracts fans, or if you want to have relationships with art directors and editors, an email list that attracts them, or it's some sort of network that you've built out with that. And I think that's something that you really have to be concerted and focusing on. And if you want brand deals, I mean, there's websites you can go to and just put your contact info in, and then you're on a list that gets shared around. And I get emails almost every day saying, hey, we've got a table that raises and lowers, and we'd love to have you do a YouTube video for us, or whatnot. And once you get into that, you can go be doing brand deals. But that's its own bag of worms as well, is because now you're making content to sell stuff, and you have to be so professional to work with these different brands. Like, there's 20 emails involved in each brand deal. So you have to be monitoring your inbox all the time and be prompt with that, and make sure you're going through the contract and make sure that you're hitting everything that the person wants. And then once it's done, you have to send them all the metrics and screenshots of what you've what you delivered on, so that they know they can go back to their marketing meetings and say, look, we paid this person $5,000 and here's the amount of views and traffic and sales that we got from it. So it's another job. It's not just something
Right.
that's handed to you as well. And
I
I
wanted to.
guarantee, Lee, I'm going to call you out. I guarantee you, after 5 of those, you'd be calling me like, I don't want any more brand deals. I hate this.
You would have so much stuff in your house. I wanted to talk about outbound marketing because as the time of recording this, Lee has launched, is it 2 workshops? The marketing of 2 workshops. And again, we were talking a little bit before the stream or before this podcast that there's some really good success coming from sort of the initial launch and the outbound marketing campaign. Lee, can you talk about that just for a quick second? A, about the workshops, but then B, like, what have you been doing outbound to get people interested in those?
Well, the workshops are both of them are direct sort of observation on where people are struggling. I mean, that's sort of my common denominator, I guess, as a teacher at this point is with watercolor, people are trying to paint these paintings and they don't know how to even use the materials or basic techniques, but they're trying to paint these paintings. That's what I saw. And so that's how I built the first one, Watercolor Essentials. It's basically how do you marry technique and materials, because in other kinds of paint, like acrylic and oil, you could paint with a stick. It doesn't matter because you can keep painting. It doesn't matter. But watercolor, it actually does matter. So that's why I built that one. And then the second one, the one that's just launched now, Sketch Smart, is I was just seeing such a struggle, like I've talked about on the podcast before, people going from a rough thumbnail to the point where they're ready to paint. It's just murky. Nobody knows what to do. It's all over the place in terms of what I'm seeing with our students. So I wanted to build a sort of a system that people could walk through. It's not a rule. It's a sort of a tool, I guess is a way to say it, and a toolbox to meaningfully move through those stages. So those are the workshops that I built. And then so launching them has been really just trying to get that information across. It's not just, oh, here's how to paint something in watercolor. It's the sort of the reasoning behind how these things are built. And so, the other day I did a live demo and lecture on some of the content, the starting content from the sketching class, just on how to set yourself up for success just in step 1. And so it's really straightforward. I'm trying to take things and make them what is the simplest thing I can do and move myself forward. And so that's sort of my common denominator, both for the classes and for the outbound stuff, because I think everybody, when they get into drawing, I remember my first term in school, I had to sculpt a human figure and all the muscles and their insertion points and all that stuff. And it's so stupid because it's so complicated compared to how do you make a good image? That question should be the easiest to answer. And then you start adding complexity on top of it as needed, not just for complexity's sake.
Yeah. Wow. And I think you've done a really good job marketing these two workshops. Not only the lecture, the YouTube lecture, but then there's been an awful lot of email campaign that's gone out to sort of the existing customer base. There's advertisements and paid ad stuff that we've discussed too. I think there's another aspect which goes back to the packaging of your work, where these two things are working symbiotically. Where if somebody's going to get one of those emails to say, hey, you should sign up for this, and then they scroll over to your Instagram and they see this beautiful package of all of those paintings, it's just reinforcing that credibility that you have. And I think that those two things work together much more than we probably give it credit for.
I hope that's sort of a unintended byproduct of it, but I hope it all sort of matches. It should, because it comes out of that direct thing. It's not me. I think this is an important point to make, is you can't just make something that's not, I feel like the stuff that I make is from me in terms of my interests and my skill level and what my process and all that stuff. It's born of that. I'm not just like looking around thinking I just need a product, like Jake was saying, with selling a table or something like that, that's not directly related with who you are as a person, Yeah.
Yep.
So that's the biggest thing with branding to me, is like, who are you as a person? Not just the art, but what are you interested in? What kind of personality do you have? what kind of sense of humor do you have, or what other books do you like to read? All that stuff blends in to make the sort of you that is your. I mean, the weird thing about us as artists is we're not just the product, but we are the brand. Like us as people. I don't think like if somebody opens a pizza place, they're not part of the pizza as much as we are part of the art.
Right.
Yeah.
Unless your name Papa John.
Papa John is.
Before we move on to the next one, because I think I know that the next category is pricing your work. One other thing. So I have two different types of brands. So I have Anthony Wheeler Art, and then I have the Chaotic Draw Along. And the Chaotic Draw Along is where I put almost all of my emphasis today. That's the most important part of my brand. And in terms of outbound marketing, we recently put together a different type of newsletter than we had been putting out, because we have a big email group and stuff like that. We took one of my characters that shows up all the time, and we had my character narrate a State of the Union for my business, for the Chaotic Draw Along business. And also my character Gil gave a 10% off coupon to any returning customer or new customer via that newsletter. And it seems so small and so silly, but the response that we got, not only from Gil sending my little idiot character, sending emails out to people with the State of the Onion instead of Union, but then also the coupon that came directly from him, the response was unreal. And again, I think the branding and the marketing is so much better over on the Draw Along side than it is on Anthony Wheeler Art right now. But it was a really fun exercise that we're going to continue to push the pedal on because it worked.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. That's cool. So the next thing you have control over is pricing your work and knowing what you should be charging for your work. And I think if you're just starting out, figure out what your hourly rate is or should be by talking to other artists, or just figure out like, well, it's either this or work at McDonald's. So I'd rather be doing
Let me ask you a
for it.
question just off the top. Hourly rate. Do you guys quote an hourly rate? I don't think I've ever quoted an hourly rate.
I did very early in my career.
I did too.
And I don't know that you would, like, I would say this would work for an example of you wanting to do like open up commissions, and you say, hey, I've got slots for 20 commissions. How much do you charge for the commissions if you've never done it before? Well, you
Right.
think to yourself, it takes me about an hour to do each one of these, or 2 hours to each one of these. And the lowest I would go, my time is worth is $20 an hour. So charge $40 for your 2 hour commissions, and then go out there and see how many you sell. And that's sort of a good way, a good like starting metric to just kind of figure out what you're willing to do and what the market is willing to pay. And then the next round of commissions, if you sell them out like that, you didn't charge enough. And if they took 5 hours to do, you absolutely need to charge more, because that's not worth your time. And so that's sort of like phase one, level one of just figuring out what you should charge for your work. The next step is when you start getting client jobs where people are coming in and saying, hey, we need you to do concept art, or we need you to do an illustration. And typically you're at the mercy of whatever their budget is. And so you have to figure out how you can work within their budget, but they're going to ask you what you charge for your day rate. And so you do have to do a little bit of homework and a little bit of research, and reaching out to other artists and just say, hey, I'm new to this. What's a fair rate to charge for this particular thing? And typically artists are going to be, they're going to be helpful to young and uppercomers and saying, listen, $100 for this particular job per day is fair, or $500 for this particular, if it's video games or something like that, is fair, right? And so that's sort of your next step, is just to do some of the homework, so that when you're not blindsided by that question of what's your rate. And so that's really where you want to go there. Do you guys have any input and thoughts on that?
I just got a different take on the hourly thing. The snag I have, I do think you should research what comparable things go for based on where you are in your career. Obviously, a seasoned person is going to charge more than a beginner. I mean, that makes sense to everybody, right? But the idea behind an hourly rate is gives me pause, because it means that the better you get at your job, the less value it has,
Right.
unless, and let me throw this metric out to you guys. Say it was, you realize that you want your art to be $100 an hour and something's going to take you 3 hours. So you charge
Mhm.
$300 for this product. Well, what happens when you get faster? Say you learn a trick and all of a sudden your time is cut in half. So
Mhm.
now, do you now make only 150? Because now you're actually better at your job and you're penalized for it with that kind of
Right.
thinking, unless because you got better at it, your hourly rate goes up. So now your rate is, $200 an hour. And then, well, you'd still actually make less based on that number. But you see what I'm saying? Is like,
Yeah.
you get penalized. The faster you get, the more you get penalized for hourly rate thinking. And so I would discourage that and think overall job value is a better way to think of
Yeah.
it, and
Project
never think of it.
based, based on what the scope of the project is. So if
Correct. Because then if I get as good as I could possibly get, let's just run that all the way through to its extreme and say I can do a painting in 5 minutes, I'm the best artist on the planet. I should get $1 million for that 5 minute painting.
Mhm.
If the quality is good, you know what I'm saying, versus
Mhm.
somebody that takes 20 hours for the same
Yeah.
thing. So it works in that capacity, whereas the hourly rate breaks down if you start thinking about it in terms of skill acquisition versus value.
I
Yeah.
still though keep track of my hours spent on projects because I want to make sure I'm staying on top of how much time is being put into this versus what I'm being paid. And
Yep.
so
That's
I
not
wouldn't
that's not
throw hours out of the window completely.
When I left my day job, I was making and I'm comfortable sharing. I made $130,000, and if you divide by 2080, which is 40 hours in a 52 work week,
Mhm.
that's 2,080 hours is ultimately what they say you're working. So that broke down to $62.50 an hour. As I was coming out, I was really searching for jobs that was going to help me maintain what my previously hourly rate was, because I could
Okay.
kind of equate all of that math in my brain, so we could maintain our lifestyle. There's a lot of jobs that you get that are like, hey, flat rate $500, and you're like, sweet, but then that $500 job takes you 80 hours, and you're like, well, this was a terrible idea. And
Right.
so especially for commissions and then smaller gigs, it made me really understand much more. I don't charge an hourly rate, but I definitely think in terms of, this job is going to take me 3 hours. I need to make sure that I'm maintaining the lifestyle and that I'm not overexerting myself for a terrible amount of money. And so I still think about that today. Years ago though, I got a gig and I called Jake and I was like, what do I bid on this? And I was like, I need, I need probably $55 an hour to take it. He goes, don't. He goes, think much more about a day rate as
Mhm.
opposed to the hourly for that client. But it would probably change depending on the client.
Mhm.
And that's stuff where you have to review that stuff individually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So the next one is contracts and negotiation. And um, this is one of those things where contracts always confused me and scared me because there's so many words, and I'm not, traditionally, I haven't been, or historically, I haven't been the best reader. Like, I get scared, not scared, but exhausted maybe when I have to go through legalese. And so it really helps to have someone who can like demystify it, can go through it with you and say, okay, what they're saying here is this. That's what that means. And I'm like, oh, I get it now. You know, I don't understand. I get in law, you have to use 100 words to say something that you could just tell somebody in 5.
Yeah.
But that's just so that nothing can be misinterpreted. So I think phase one there is just to understand or have someone in your corner, or do the homework necessary to just understand legalese and what a contract is saying, and then understand what's expected in a contract. So you got to learn what usage rights are going on in a contract. You've got to learn what, if there's a kill fee. You got to learn what the scope of the project is, the deadline of the project. All those things should be in the contract. Um, what the royalty rate is if it's a project like that, what indemnities are, All of those sort of things are stuff that you need to be doing homework on so that you kind of know what you're getting into when you read through a contract, or at least have someone who understands contracts, whether it's a lawyer or an agent, go through it with you as well. Now, the flip side of that is the negotiation, because you don't get to a contract until you've negotiated stuff. And there's even negotiation happening once the contract is sent. You can see, oh, they didn't adequately reflect the stuff we talked about in this contract. And so you have to push back and say, this contract, no, it should say this about rights usage, not indefinitely in perpetuity throughout the universe, but it should be limited to the United States or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So that's the kind of the understanding that you have to understand. And I think in negotiating, do not be afraid to stand up for something you strongly feel about, and just say, listen, I have a concern, or this is something that I would really like in this, and just be open and conversational about it. And I think you can even get away with, especially early on, saying, listen, honestly, this is the second or third time I've done a deal like this, so I'm still kind of new to it, and I'm wondering, can we do this, or can we work it out this way? And typically, you got to understand the most people that you're working with are gonna listen to that and give you an honest reason why they can't, or say, okay, here's the here's the window that we're working in. Here's the boundaries that we're working in. I don't know, anything you guys want to add to that?
Yeah, early in my career, I really stunk at negotiating, and I undervalued myself tremendously. And not only did I seek less money, but I sought to do it in less time than I sort of like. I wanted to please the client so much, so I didn't negotiate enough time, and I didn't negotiate enough money, and it bit me in the butt. And I think sometimes you have to get bit in the butt a few times, like to know what that feels like, so you don't do that again. A couple of years ago, I walked away from a $40,000 deal because the way that we were negotiating and the way that the contract was written just wasn't favorable enough for me to take it. It's really great front end money, really good back end money. The things just weren't working to make it all cohesive, and there was too many stipulations in the contract that were not favorable towards me. And so I had to walk away from it, and that hurt because that $40,000 would have really helped. But I would have lost a ton of control, and I think my life would have been really pretty miserable despite the money. The last thing before I let Lee talk is I don't like AI. I don't like to use AI. I don't have a ChatGPT account. Like, I'm a Luddite. But I think in this day and age, to be able to feed a contract into one of these AI systems, to say what are the top 5 favorable and least favorable things about this contract, so you can start to get a working point. But I would still run all of that stuff through a lawyer or somebody who really understands legalese. So no matter what that AI system spits out, I would still go check it. But I think it would be nice, because when I read some of these contracts, my eyes would go cross-eyed, and I would just be like, I don't understand any of this. So I love that artists now have a starting point, but I would not rely upon AI to read those contracts for you perfectly.
I think that's smart. I think with contracts, the big thing for me, especially seeing a lot of students go through different phases of their career, getting their first job, getting their 10th job, becoming a pro, is really asking, what is the most important thing to me at this time, and does the contract support that? Like, I'm not a big fan of work for hire. I'm not a big fan of losing your rights for images. That said, at the beginning of your career, I am for seeing people get things published. So if, you may take things some things may be in a contract that at one point in your career are okay, and at other points in your career are not okay. And that's because your goals and your priorities have changed. In the beginning, you just need published work. And if you don't have it, that is something that is a check mark against you. It's an X mark against you. And so, I read contracts with that in mind. Going into this, idea, if I'm new, is this book going to give me, or this project going to give me creative freedom in some way that I don't have at this point? Is it going to give me exposure that I haven't seen? and up to this point. And so I look at it through that lens. Like, what am I trying to get out of it? Don't just assume that the client is trying to screw you over. I mean, a lot of times clients, like I've worked with art directors where I mentioned something in the contract that was crazy, and they had no idea that was in there. And so sometimes the lawyer department does not talking to the creatives. So don't just get mad at the company. I have also seen people be demanding at the front end of their career for a position of power that they don't actually have yet, and they lose the job because of it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to be scared of saying things like Jake was saying as well, like ask for what you want. I mean, sometimes if somebody says, "Hey, I need to take all the rights," it's like it's a work for hire contract. The first thing I say is, "Well, what's important to you about having all the rights?" And then they may sometimes, like I said, they'll say, "I didn't know that was even in there," and they'll
Yeah.
willingly change it. I mean, that
Right.
actually happened last year for that underbunks job that we did, where it was just sort of in there. It was written by a lawyer. The actual client had no idea that was in there, and we changed it immediately. It was really easy to change it.
Yeah.
But that's how I went about it. I didn't say, "Oh, you're trying to screw me over." I said, "What about this is important?" And they're like, "Oh, that's not important to us." And I'm like, "Oh, cool. Well, we're on the same page."
That's
Yeah.
a really good note. Yeah.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
you just go through each thing
Good
like
advice.
that. You know, if the rights aren't favorable, then I start talking money. Okay, this doesn't work for me, and this doesn't work for me. Well, then this other thing has to work for me. The money goes up. In other words, if you need all the rights, I'm going to charge you more. And and I look at it through that kind of lens.
Yeah. I think there's sometimes too, like, as much as I fight for all of my creative rights, there's sometimes that there's just a project that comes in that just speaks to you in a way that just makes it all work. And so maybe you lose something on the back end, but maybe you get a little bit more money in the front, or maybe it's a subject matter that you're just stoked about. And then I always used to operate so rigidly about everything. And I think in my old age, I'm much more I'm inflexible about the stuff that is going to put me at a loss and like make my life more difficult. But I'm more flexible to the idea that I don't know how to word it. I'm losing my train of thought on it. But like if there's an awesome piece of subject matter and they're going to pay me a little bit more money, but I don't get the rights to it,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that's probably okay. You know?
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Number 5 on this list is client communication. So with that, it is so important, I think, to respond in a timely manner and to be clear, because that's what equals trust on their part. And and again, like Anthony was saying, like there's sometimes where I'm a Riley, there's sometimes where I'm a Taylor, where I'm like, I just can't get to my inbox, and life gets in the way, and you really, and sometimes maybe you haven't had a chance to work on something, and you don't want to email them and admit like, hey, I blew a deadline or something like that. But that is so much better for you to just say, hey, listen, this deadline's 3 days away. I just want to let you know right now, I'm not going to make it. They love the heads up way more than being in the dark about anything. So just good news or bad news, communicate clearly, don't withhold information, and just treat them the way you would want to be treated. I mean, I've had clients who have had poor communication skills as well, and it's so frustrating on this end to just not understand, like, what do you need it for, or what's my deadline, or the reason I didn't give you that one thing is you can never ask for it, stuff like that. So so I think basically the clear communication is being very upfront and open, asking good questions, like what Lee was saying in the negotiation, like what is it about this project that is important to you, or if this would be for you to take a W on this project, what would I need to do? Like, what is the highest priority? Is it beautiful art, or is it on time? Or is it, what is my leeway here with these parameters that we have set up? And then just setting expectations very early on, like understanding what the deadline is, what is going on in your life that could prevent you from finishing at that deadline, just so they know, like, oh, hey, just want to let you know that this next week we're going to be going on a family vacation, so do not expect to hear from me during that week. They love to know that up front. What's the expectation for revisions? What is exactly needed for deliverables. All those things are important in this stage of client communication.
Yep. I mean, that's for sure. One of the things that I remember about my early client interaction, and that probably set me back a couple of years because I had to learn it on my own. It's funny that a lot of this stuff doesn't get talked about in school. You're in school for 4 years to talk about it, and we talk about like which color blue I used up every week, but like we never talked about talking to the client and what that is about. I tell you the flaw, the fallacy that I thought when I left school and started getting work was they give me the job. I am now on my own, and I was nervous. You know, you sort of have imposter syndrome, or you just feel like everybody knows what to do, and I'm just supposed to deliver this thing, and I need to do it by myself. And I was just picturing like the glorious send in when I send them the email, like here it is, and they're just going to be like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. We couldn't live without this. It was so faulty. But what would happen is I would get in the middle of the project and I have either a question about the project or I don't know what to do. Like say I've done a couple of sketches for something and I don't know which one is better for the project. And I'm just thinking to myself, I need to solve all this because they're expecting me to know this. And so I would just hold it in and then I'd turn it in and they're saying, no, we wanted it to be more this way. And turns out one of my sketches that I didn't talk to them about was the direction that they wanted to go in. Later, I finally learned when I actually had a little bit of confidence and knew the person I was working with a little more. Early in the process, I would send them a sketch and say, or a couple of sketches, and I'd say, based on what we're trying to solve here, which one do you think is better? I think any of these three can work. And I'd talk a little. I mean, it was just a really interactive type experience. And when she wrote back to me saying, well, I like two, but you know, what do you think if we did this? So she was asking questions. She didn't say, just do number two. She didn't give me an order form. It was a conversation. And all of a sudden, you know, the clouds lifted and the sun hit me. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is so much easier because now I have some criteria to work with but I still get to make decisions. Like I said, it wasn't an order form, it was an interaction. And from that point on, I interact all the time. I say, hey, this character direction might be a good idea. Well, what do you think? You know, I don't send a ton of those emails, by the way. I assume they're very busy. But if you are stuck, you can have these conversations and it is interactive. And I didn't know that starting out.
Yep, same.
Yeah. I want to point out too, like, don't forget the phone. You don't have to communicate through email. You can call them up and have a conversation over the phone
really?
or schedule a Zoom meeting or something.
Do you
like
do that?
Do I do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never done. I've never done the call thing. I should have though. That's a good idea.
Today, I mean, I'm getting a quote for something I'm getting printed, and we've just been going back and forth, email after email, and then finally I'm just like, call this guy. So I call him up. I'm like, hey, let's just hash this out right here on the phone. And it took 5 minutes, and we're good to go. Whereas it would be a 24-hour chain of emails happening there.
Yep.
Oh, I'm getting a call.
Hey, bro. I'm calling Jake right now to ask him how the podcast is going.
Hey, Lee, what's up?
No, not much. How's the podcast going?
It's going good. We're about to go to the last one, number 6.
All right. That sounds good, man. I'll talk to you later.
All right. See ya. Lee called me in the middle of the podcast.
You derailed this whole thing, man.
Being a joker.
We broke a
All right,
third
number
wall
6,
somehow.
project management and scope control. And we've kind of gotten a little bit into this with client communication and some of the negotiation stuff. But really, essentially, this is, you know, when you're given, let's say, a children's book, which is 32 illustrations you're responsible for, or plus a cover, right? The end paper design, the title page design, all that stuff. You need to understand how long it takes for you to do an illustration, how long it takes for you to do any graphic design that needs to happen, and then figure out how much time you have until the deadline, and then chart a course. Like, okay, in order for me to finish this on time and to meet my checkpoints, I need to work on it 5 hours a day, every day, or 5 hours a day, twice a week. Or you got to do some sort of like project management to just figure out, here's where I'm at, here's what needs to happen in order to finish. on top of that, what I love making is a chart where I get to check off things as I finish them. That is huge for me, and it helps me stay on track because I can easily look at that chart and see it because I'm such a visual person. I could see, okay, it's 1/4. The project is 1/4 finished. I still have 3/4 to go, right? Or the project is half finished because half my squares are filled out. And that just gives me so much less anxiety than trying to figure out like, oh, I mean, I've been working on it and I know the deadline's coming up, but I really don't know how much is finished. So this is really good for long-term projects. For short projects, I would just do an audit starting now. Anytime you do a project, just record how long it takes you, how much time you spend on it, and what you spend your day doing, so that you know when someone comes to you and says, hey, how long would it take you to do this book cover? You can say, how many characters are in it? There's 5 characters on this cover, but 1 character is like a main character. Okay, you already know that each character adds 2 hours to your production schedule time, right? So you could say, okay, 5, that's 10 hours plus the main character plus the background. It would take me 20 hours to finish this, right? That's the kind of knowledge that you want to have at some point so that you can adequately say, well, if it's a 20-hour project and they're going to pay $2,000, you do the math. Yeah, that's a good rate. I'll take the project.
Yep. One tool, I want to share my screen really quick. One tool that I have fallen in love with, I've shared it here in the podcast before. So if you're listening, this is a visual thing. It's a website called Figma. And this is a Figma Jamboard that I've been using for the chaotic draw along. This is invaluable for me to be able to work with a collaborator, but also to visually get all of our elements sort of lined up, figured out. Now, if you're looking on the camera, this feels like it's very graphic designy because this particular project is. But as I zoom out, look at the breadth of this board with where we started, how many iterations that we've gone through, what influences we wanted to attach, everybody's to-do list, what are some of the key elements that were left at a certain time. So we have our to-do list that needed to get done by X, Y, and Z. And this has become a massive part of my day-to-day. And I think it's relatively inexpensive. I think there's a free starter thing. But I have a Figma for almost every element of my creative business right now. So these are our Amazon images. So
Is that free?
This is free. If you have like a collaborator, if you have somebody else who's contributing to it, then you have to buy seat access, which can be very inexpensive. It can be way expensive. But like we do just design work in here, and like I'm prepping up for another art book. And so we have, like, I just took all my raw scans and I just dumped them in here so I can start to organize. I don't want to start working on this until February or March, but I am getting organized for it right now. And it's just so helpful. And so this is a great project management and scope control tool. This is part of an email that we put together. And man, I'm using it every day for everything. So I would really recommend this, and I think you can use it for just your pure illustration stuff, for your pure project management stuff. You can put little Post-it notes and little arrows and little doodads. You can drag and drop images super easily. Can't recommend it enough.
So would you do that for like a children's book?
Heck yeah!
You'd have
my
all
gosh!
the sketches, then all of the pencils, then all of the.
Yeah. So let me show you the art book. So again, I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but what I wanted to do is I made a decision. I was like, what sections do I want in this art book? What fonts are speaking to me right now? So I went and I just took screenshots of all of these different fonts. So then I can match those up down the road. And then I just started making categories of stuff that I was really interested in that I had scans for. Speaking of sex appeal, I just want you guys to see this Sasquatch in a bathing suit.
There you go.
Bikini
I think you could
Sasquatch every day on Instagram.
all day. That's all I should be posting, and then I would have 2.6 million followers. But I would do this for a picture book.
Eyes.
Yeah, I would do this for a picture book immediately. Like I think this would be the smartest thing. Sketch in Procreate, sketch on like on your piece of paper, take a photo, dump it into this, and then start to line things up, and you can move stuff around super easily. Like I can take this and I can drag and drop it just about anywhere.
So, so once you got that planned out, are those files like are they hosted somewhere on your hard drive or?
These aren't linked files. These are just screenshots.
Yeah.
I think that there's a file management system within here, but I've not gotten there yet.
Hmm.
So I would have to go back through and then reorganize, somewhere else. But I've got most of the planning
This
and the
is
scope stuff done.
kind of what I use. So, this would be good for like reference. Just make a reference page.
Oh, heck yeah.
Zoom in
Heck
and
yeah.
out.
Would that
Yeah,
be different
so-
than a Pinterest page that's under a heading?
Well, think about it. Let's say you're planning a book, and the book is like a Christmas book, and so you could have a section that's all little Christmas villages, images of Christmas villages, and then scroll over, and it's all snowman images, and then scroll over, it's all, like icicle cave images, and so instead of clicking, and they're all full res, right? So you can zoom in on them and like scroll around with it instead of having to go into Pinterest and
Yeah,
go through it
I
that
use Microsoft OneNote similarly. It's like maybe like a more Luddite version of that. I don't know if you guys ever used that program, but it's amazing. I mean, you can put anything in there, and so it's just really just grabbing and organizing pages within a project. It's a great system.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, should we wrap this up? I've got some actionable steps for people, and then we'll take it out. Does that sound good? So if you've been listening, you made it through this end, actually put a little emoji in there. Put the little checklist emoji on the YouTube video. So we want to know who actually listens to these videos all the way through. So checklist emoji, and tell us the one thing you probably need to work on the most. So here's your actionable steps. I've written these down. Number one, this is something you could do right now, is audit your pricing knowledge. Okay. Do you know what to charge for a full page illustration? Do you know what you might charge for licensing rights? What's your day rate? So that's a good thing you can do by the end of the week, is just figuring out what's your pricing for your work. Okay. Number two, I would go through and find contracts, and educate yourself on what are the key components of a contract. So when a contract comes into you, this is going to be a little bit of homework. When a contract comes into you, just understand what terms you should be looking for, what things are usually negotiable in a contract, and just to get yourself comfortable with what a contract looks like and is, okay? So that you're not nervous anytime a contract faces you, but then you've been there, you understand. All right. I would also build action item number 3, like a communication checklist for any time a client emails you. So this would be, find out what the dimensions are of the project, the page count of the project, how they want the files delivered, what the pay rate is for it. I would also make sort of a timeline for yourself. Check in, have you done the post sketches check-in, right? Have you done the post line drawing check-in? Things like that, just so that you're staying on top of the communication stuff that you need to do. And if you need to, go back through and listen to that section on this episode to make your own little checklist of stuff you should talk about in communication. Okay, number 4. Real easy one here. I mean, it's easy to say. It's going to be a little bit of work on your end, but this is clean up your portfolio. Okay. Think about your ideal client, who you want to work for, and does your portfolio look attractive to that? Put yourself in their shoes, in their mindset. Does your portfolio look attractive to them? Does your portfolio show consistency? Is it very clear on the lane that you're in? Okay. So that might be a 6-month project. You could look at it over the course of a day or a week and take notes, and this is what I got to do, but then work on the next 6 months on creating new portfolio pieces that match this vision. And lastly, I'll leave this open to you. Any other checklist items, the actionable steps that you guys think that people have they should do?
I think that's really good. I mean, that's a lot of stuff, especially if you're starting from scratch.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll leave it with those 4. All right. I'll take us out then. Thank you for joining us today, everybody. 3-Point Perspective is made possible by SVSLEARN. We're becoming a great Illustrator Starts. We are bringing on people for our fall workshops right now, so do go to SVSLearn and check out Paper Stories, Sam Cotterill's paper 3D modeling illustration process. She's going to show you how she does that. Check out Lee's Watercolor Essentials. If you've ever been afraid of watercolor or you've done watercolor and it just turned out horribly, you're going to absolutely kill it in watercolor after taking Lee's course. And then Sketch Smart, which is, I think, absolutely necessary for every artist to go through the things that he's teaching in there, even if you need a refresher. If you ever feel like your illustrations are just too hard to manage, like you get to that one point, you're like, gee whiz, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know my front from my back anymore. This workshop is going to help you with that. So do check those out. Okay. We just want to give a shout out to everybody who helps us here at SVS Learn. And so those people are, I don't have it memorized. I should. Podcast produced by Daniel Tu. Team manager Preston Smith, keeper of the curriculum Austin Shirtlift, show notes wrangler Lily Howell, chief operations officer Lisa Fott, illustrator Annalise Black. Now, go draw something.